Delicious pumpkin pie. It's my favorite pie. I love it because it's so flavorful but not too sweet. Topped with whipped cream, it's perfection. You can make pumpkin pie with canned puree or from a sugar pumpkin like we're doing here.
Our recipe works perfectly for both ways.
So stay tuned if you're making it from a can or from a fresh pumpkin. If you're making puree from a pumpkin, you can refer to our pumpkin puree video. We show you all the steps. We're making our pie from dough we made from scratch. You can do that too. Or you can buy the dough or buy a pre-made pie shell. If you're using a store-bought pie shell, skip ahead to the mark below. You can use any kind of pie plate. Grease your pan with butter and sprinkle with flour. Many pie crust recipes call for shortening because it helps keep the structure. But we prefer the flavor of butter. Blind baking the crust does the job of keeping the structure, so you don't need to use shortening. Roll the dough into a rough circle about 12 inches in diameter. Fold the dough to make it easier to transfer into the pie plate. Now gently unfold it. As gently as you can, fit the circle so it lines the pie dish without pulling too hard on the dough. Now press in firmly but gently. It's time for this pie to get a haircut. Trim along the edges, leaving about a ½ inch hanging over the side. Take the trimmings from the side and fill any gaps along the edge or rips inside. With your thumbs, tuck the dough under bit by bit until you've done the whole pie. Now let's make it pretty and add some ruffles, like this. It only takes a minute, but it makes your pie a work of art. Pierce the bottom of the crust with a fork to prevent air bubbles from forming. Freeze the crust for at least an hour. Preheat the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. We are going to blind bake the crust. This step is very important. It's to maintain the structure of the pie crust once the filling is added. Crumple the paper first as it makes it easier to maneuver it to line the crust. Do this right away while the crust is still frozen. Now we add a piece of aluminum foil on top of the parchment paper. This is to ensure the walls of the pie keep their shape. Now add dried beans. We have a stash of yellow peas that we only use for blind baking. Bake for 15 minutes. Take out the crust and remove the beans and lining. The crust isn't completely cooked yet, but the shape is set. Now we do an egg wash to seal the surface of the pie shell and to give the crust a nice golden color. Spread the egg evenly over the crust with a brush. Reduce the oven temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and put in the pie crust. Bake for 10 to 15 minutes or until the crust is golden. The crust is ready.
A pre-made pie shell definitely makes it easier.
But it's not nearly as tasty as our buttery, flaky homemade crust. If you'd like to make our pie crust recipe, you can click on this link.
Now we prepare the filling.
You'll do this whether you're using canned puree or puree from a fresh pumpkin. Add 3 eggs at room temperature to a bowl and whisk. Add brown sugar, salt, evaporated milk, and spices. We used a pumpkin spice mixture. We have a video on how to make it. You can also keep it simpler and just use cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg. If you find this video helpful, please help us by liking it
And subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
Mix to combine. Add the pumpkin puree and mix well. Did you know that many pumpkin puree brands use a pumpkin that looks more like a butternut squash? It's called a Dickinson pumpkin, and it looks like this. The pie shell should be nice and full of filling. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 to 55 minutes. You know the pie is ready when the center jiggles a little bit. Don't worry if some bubbles or cracks form when you bake it. This often happens with pumpkin pie, and it just makes it look more rustic. It doesn't affect the taste at all. Let the pie cool at room temperature for at least 45 minutes. Meanwhile, you can prepare the whipped cream. Pour out a half cup of cold whipping cream. Add a half teaspoon of sugar and a pinch of pumpkin spice. You can whisk with beaters or by hand. We like our whipped cream only lightly sweetened, but you can add a little more sugar if you like. You know it's ready when it forms soft peaks like this. Pumpkin pie and whipped cream are the perfect pair, but the pie is also delicious on its own. We love it both ways. Enjoy your pumpkin pie! If you liked this video, we think you'll find these helpful too.
A pre-made... Una, dos, tres.